topic of conversation surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs this whole offseason has been what wide receivers are they going to add to this offense, specifically with the departures of McCole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster. Now that the draft has passed and they have drafted Rashee Rice, the topic still hasn't changed, as there are rumors and reports saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are still looking at a high-end wide receiver. We'll discuss these rumors, we'll discuss these reports, but before we do get into all of that, please be sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, before we do kick off this video, we were gone for a few days again, so in case you missed it, let's drop the segment. And one thing that released was we got the Kansas City Chiefs schedule, but we didn't get their preseason schedule. Now we have it. It is officially released. The Kansas City Chiefs will play in the preseason the New Orleans Saints, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cleveland Browns. Honestly, the only game that scares me, because it is preseason, so it's basically players fighting for roster spots, but that Arizona Cardinal game scares me. I do not like their field whatsoever. It affected us week 1. It affected the Super Bowl. And now you got to do it in preseason. And last thing I want to see is anyone get injured before the season starts. So hopefully everything goes well. But I'm unlike most fans where I watch the preseason and every team in full totality with everyone. Because this is a time where unknown, unsung players come out and get their rights to fulfill their dreams. And it's so cool to see. Like, you already know what the starters, the first string, all those guys are going to be like. But in the preseason, when the third and fourth quarter comes around, that's when it becomes fun, because that's when the real roster battles and when those real fun football battles come out. And that's when preseason and training camp is at its best. So I'm going to be in full tune throughout training camp and preseason, and it's going to be fun. I can't wait for the month of August and even July to dive into training camp. And also, we got another news to catch up on, as the Kansas City Chiefs first-round draft pick, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, signed his rookie deal. That leaves only one draft pick unsigned by the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's Rashee Rice. You love to see it. Before OTAs, the whole class is basically under contract, and I expect Rashee Rice to sign his deal next week. So now that we're all caught up, let's get into these wide receiver rumors. Now, I do want to specify, these are rumors. These are reports. There's no truth to these whatsoever. Like, it's really the dead point of the NFL offseason. So we're going to see a lot of crazy storylines going through the end of May and June, because reporters, these rumors, they're going to be stretching to get people's attention and get headlines. And that's what happened. And the first one I saw was from NFL Rumors on Twitter, who I don't really find credible at all. Like, they'll either report off of someone else's stuff and say it was theirs, or they'll just stretch and make a headline. And I think that was the case with the Kansas City Chiefs report, where they had one saying the Kansas City Chiefs are calling around still in regards to a wide receiver number 1. Now, could that be the case? It could be. We know that Brett Veach is always out there working the phones and trying to find wide receivers to bolster this roster. But at the end of the day, also, I love where the Kansas City Chiefs roster sits with wide receivers, and I feel the Kansas City Chiefs feel the same. Also, before OTAs in training camp, for Brett Veach to be making calls, or for the Kansas City Chiefs to still be trying to find wide receivers, to me is quite concerning, because you haven't seen your depth until you get to training camp or OTAs. I get it. It's always good to improve and bolster your squad, but see what you got before you try to get someone. Now, we're going to go in more depth and kind of specify on these rumors and where NFL Rumors may have created a report or created a rumor, as on NFL.com, Mark Sessler, I think I pronounced that right, said one of the key priorities that the Kansas City Chiefs haven't done this offseason, and what he is expecting or anticipating, is that they still need to basically pinpoint a wide receiver number 1, and he wouldn't be surprised if they went for someone like a Mike Evans or the famously mentioned DeAndre Hopkins throughout this offseason. Now, I think DeAndre Hopkins rumors are dead for anybody, any team. I think they can speed back up once the season kicks off and once once or if the Arizona Cardinals start struggling and that trade deadline happens. But a very interesting name is Mike Evans. And we mentioned him on this channel before. And yes, I would love to have him on this team. But at the end of the day, is that someone who Brett Veach would trade for? And you just got to focus on how Brett Veach manages a team. Now, Mike Evans, top tier talent, would easily be the best wide receiver on this roster. May evenly be the best wide receiver that Patrick Mahomes has played with other than Tyreek Hill. And he would complement Travis Kelce perfectly. But he's also an aging receiver. Now, he hasn't shown that he's aging, but his age will say otherwise. Now, we've seen Brett Veach doesn't tend to trade for anyone over 30. He likes to get these young guys, try to mold them, and get them to a second contract or get the most of a draft pick. And I don't know if that fits a Mike Evans thing. But here's this as well. If you look at the Kansas City Chiefs roster in full with the wide receivers, and we're going to discuss it, and then if you add Mike Evans on there, the only reason the Kansas City Chiefs, I feel, would be tempted to trade for a Mike Evans or even a DeAndre Hopkins is because they want it all. And what I mean by all is the roster the Kansas City Chiefs have right now and the receivers and even the tight end group, they are more than capable to go back to the Super Bowl and win it. What I mean by wanting it all with a guy like Mike Evans or DeAndre Hopkins, that's Brett Veach literally putting it all in and saying, let's try this undefeated thing. Now, that may be as crazy as it seems, but when you got a generational quarterback, and you best believe, and we've always heard, he focuses on what Tom Brady has done in his career. And one thing Tom Brady has done is he's went undefeated. He just lost in the Super Bowl. You best believe that, I almost said Peyton Manning, that Patrick Mahomes is focusing on, I need to have an undefeated season. And if Brett Veach and staff feel the same way, they're going to get him a high talent. Now, it could be at the wide receiver position. It could be bolstering up the O-line. It could be bolstering up the defense. But if we're focusing on Mike Evans, that's solely what that would be for, because you don't need these sexy name wide receivers to go out and win a Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. It was proven last year. They won an AFC championship game with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Marcus Kemp, Sky Moore. Players a lot of teams haven't even heard of or fans haven't heard of went on to take the Kansas City Chiefs to the Super Bowl. And then in the Super Bowl as well, Kadarius Toney played hurt. Juju played hurt. McCole Hardman played hurt. And they still found a way to win a Super Bowl. If the Kansas City Chiefs want to zone in on a basically top 10 wide receiver, they're looking at a way, way bigger picture, I believe. And that, I don't know, would basically cancel that all out because they know they can win without him. So I feel like they wouldn't offer much, or they wouldn't have their foot on the gas saying, we need him now. Unless they have that killer instinct to where, hey, let's try this undefeated team, which a lot of teams will always say, we come in winning each and every week. But when you got a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, and they know what greatness they are and what kind of dynasty mode they're about to be in, they may believe that they can have an undefeated season at home. Now, again, when you talk undefeated, there's much more than just the players on the roster. It's the schedule at hand. It's how healthy can your team stay, and the chemistry as well, which we know the Kansas City Chiefs have very well because Coach Reid and staff and the players with the veterans like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones know how to keep a locker room in full. It's so much to manage in one season. But if you wanted to bring an extra piece and a big-time piece, it would show that you're all in and more than just the Super Bowl. But now let's focus on the roster and home, because NFL media and even Chiefs Kingdom does not believe what the Kansas City Chiefs have in the wide receiver room. And I kind of find it astonishing, really, because I love this Kansas City Chiefs roster. Let's start with Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, who a lot of us expect to take a huge step going into 2023. And let's talk about Kadarius Toney a little bit, because everyone will say, hey, sky's the limit for him. He has all the potential. He just does not know how to stay healthy. Let's see what he's done in a full offseason. Let's see what he does in training camp and in preseason. And all I got to say is, if he's healthy, what makes him not a wide receiver number one? I saw a really crazy stat that, and I wish I could quote it and I wish I had the tweet. So we're just going to speak at the top of the head. But Kadarius Toney only played 7 snaps in the Super Bowl. He had 1 touchdown and 1 explosive punt return that basically sealed the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. 7 snaps. That just shows you the kind of potential and the crazy skill player Kadarius Toney is. If he stays healthy, that is your wide receiver number 1. That is basically your playmaker, that Tyreek Hill playmaker that you're going to have the defense on the toes and they're not going to know what to do moving forward. I hope Kadarius Toney is healthy to prove all the haters wrong, to prove Chiefs Kingdom wrong as well, because I know a lot of you are doubting him. If he's healthy, he can easily be a top 10 wide receiver. That may be my overreaction, but at the end of the day, he's going to put numbers up in this offense. And also, I want to focus on Sky Moore too, because Sky Moore can be a legit threat in this league. And if it's starting off as a slot wide receiver, then so be it, because that's where he excels as well. I think one thing he needs to get down, and I think it will happen, if not has already happened this offseason, but in training camp and in preseason, is the chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. We saw a little bit in that Chargers game where I was like, oh, Sky Moore's got an arsenal with him, whether it be his route running or his hands, which seem like certified, and he doesn't drop a ball whatsoever, but his separation, he knows how to get away from defenders. He was doing it all last year. It's just, you've seen, that's where the chemistry didn't match up with Mahomes. Expect that to take another step as well. And if they have a chemistry that is in sync, I think the main question that we're going to be focusing on next year is who is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver number 1? And it won't be because are they going to trade for DeAndre Hopkins or are they going to trade for Mike Evans? I think in the perfect world it's going to be, damn, Kadarius Toney's putting up numbers and so is Sky Moore. Who is the wide receiver number 1? And I think that would be a beautiful situation to be at hand. And also, then you're going to look at the other guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I know a lot of Chiefs Kingdom has been clamoring or even thinking because of his contract that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to release him. That was never going to happen this offseason. And also, put some respect on his name as well, because if it wasn't for him, we're not holding up a Lombardi. He's one of the sole reasons why the Kansas City Chiefs won an AFC championship game. Also, I think I said it all last year as well, is it takes time to learn this offense. And we saw last offseason that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was Mahomes' favorite weapon in the offseason. And then you see it kind of, the connection go through the season, and then you've seen it in the championship. Now that it's year 2, it's just going to be better than ever. And I think that's going to help every wide receiver on this roster. All of them besides McCole Hardman were in year 1. This is year 2 for the majority of them now. It's going to be fun to see the growth going to the next level. Then you got guys like Richie James, Justin Watson, and the rookie Rashee Rice. And let's focus on Richie James a little bit, because I do think his roster spot can be in jeopardy, but I don't think it's in that much jeopardy as a lot of people think. Brett Veach spoke on to how much they love Richie James, how much they loved him dating back to San Francisco. The fact that they wanted to trade for him as well. And then you look at what he did last year. He put up numbers with Daniel Jones. In an offense that supposedly had no wide receivers, the Kansas City Chiefs got 2 of them. They find value there. And Richie James was solidified. He made plays in that offense. And the fact that Kansas City could basically get a steal is so much fun to watch. I think if he is in a roster spot, it could be with someone like a Justin Watson, who he had his inconsistent moments, but is it really inconsistent when you think of someone who is either your wide receiver number 5 or wide receiver number 6? If you get them to come in and make plays, that's a bonus. That's something you shouldn't expect from a wide receiver number 5 or 6. So those two can be battling out because they'll be taking snaps from each other and also special teams. They both can help benefit the Kansas City Chiefs in that asset as well. And let me not forget, before I close the video off, because Chiefs Kingdom will have their eyes specifically zoned in on one guy throughout this offseason, well, training camp and preseason, is Justin Ross. What is the dude all about? We are about to find out in a couple months. I know the hype train is taking off and going full steam ahead. I'm intrigued. I'm excited. The dude has potential. He was a projected first-round pick before injuries and everything kind of slowed it all down a little bit. So let's see how it goes. Let's see if he can stay healthy, because it was a serious injury. But Mahomes, Travis Kelce, they have all mentioned his potential is through the roof. you don't see that kind of talent go undrafted. So I expect him to make the roster. I love the wide receiver room and whole. This is an amazing depth. They don't need a Mike Evans. They don't need a DeAndre Hopkins. But if they look at this bigger than a Super Bowl and look at it as an undefeated season that they're going after, they might just do it. So with that, Chiefs Kingdom, I'm going to close this video off. You let me know how you feel with the potential trade of a Mike Evans or even a DeAndre Hopkins. Is this just rumors? It's dead season. We just need to make a storyline, or could there be some truth to it? And also, let's hear how you feel about this Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver room. Now, I'm closing this video off, but please be sure to jump in the comments down below. Let's have fun. Let's discuss. Let's chat. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you did like this video, please leave that big thumbs up. Y'all take care. Peace.